Hey guys, my name is James Walsh, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter here on YouTube. I want to thank you for finding us. Please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. And if you get the chance on this video, click the like button. If you do, it'll turn blue. Check it out. Also, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all this great content available in MP3 format, our online store that'll keep us going free and clear, daily news updates, as well as all the information from the history of professional wrestling you could possibly ever want. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com online right now. Without any delay, let's get to your interview here on the Wrestling Epicenter. Hey gang, looking back at another interview. This is one from 2008 with Big Vito, who was somewhat fresh off of his WWE run where he wore the dress. Interesting chat with a guy who is the catalyst for the concussion lawsuit. This is obviously before that, but you could hear some of that in what he's saying. Misunderstood would be my explanation of Big Vito. He is a nice guy. He is a hard worker, but he is rough around the edges, and that is why some people perceive him in certain ways, which is unfair to him, and was unfair to him throughout his career. Good interview, though. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like this one, we did a prior one back in 2004 with Vito. A lot of fun. Maybe it was 2003. Anyway you slice it, we've done a couple with him, and there's another one that's going to be coming up next year, next 2009 year, when we get to that upload, which is pretty good too, and that's when he was looking for bookings at that point. So this is probably the most centered of our interviews with him. He was a little bit more looking for work in the next one, and he was a little more angry in the first one. So this is a good centered interview with Big Vito. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, notifications bell, visit WrestlingEpicenter.com, buy some of our content, our DVDs, our action figures, our t-shirts, our books, whatever you want. Find it at WrestlingEpicenter.com and click the store to shop with us.
Epicenter.com. On the Newsmaker line, we're being joined by a former ECW, WCW, WWE, TNA superstar, guy I've always been a big fan of, Mr. Big Vito. Vito, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I want to thank you for having me on Interactive. Great radio show.
Oh, we've had you on before. It was probably a good 5 years ago, man. It's been a long time. A lot's changed since then.
Yeah, you probably went through a bunch of co-hosts, and you know how you guys are on radio. You forget the people who got you started. But now that we're here together today, we'll make it all good, and we'll have one of the best interviews you guys ever had.
Well, let's try to do that, and you have no idea about the whole co-host thing. You hit the nail on the head on that one. I've been through probably a half a dozen since then, but it's...
So you mean you went through the co-hostesses with the mostesses, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. That means if I can forgive a RuPaul reference, yeah, that works. Let's see here. So, Vito, we've had a lot of divas on, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but let me start out by asking you, what are you wearing tonight?
Actually, I'm in gym clothes.
Okay.
If that tightens up your manhood a little bit.
Good. Well, of course you know what I'm getting at, and you probably, it's weird, because you have all the talent in the world. You've been on TV for several years now, a decade, and over a decade, and it seems weird that the character people now most remember and fondly remember is you in the dress. So basically, starting out, what did you think about putting on the dress?
Hey, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. You know, a lot of people ask me about that, and I'm like, it's not about wearing the dress, and I'm like that. It's like, I'm wrestling for WWE, and that's where it all began, because all along I wanted to be a WWE superstar. It didn't matter how I did it, why I did it, how anything worked out. As long as I got to be a WWE superstar, I didn't care what I did. And being a dedicated professional like I am to the wrestling business, and being old school and really upholding what wrestling really is. I mean, kayfabe and doing what you're supposed to do and being a professional and, polishing your craft all those years before I finally signed on with WWE. It was an opportunity of a lifetime. And if you ask 2,500 guys, would you put on a dress? I bet you if you took them in the back, said, listen, we'll give you a contract for $100,000. Will you wear a dress? I bet you every one of them guys would say yes.
Absolutely. I think they would as well. But let me ask you, you've been wrestling since 1990, right? About there?
Yeah, 1990.
Now, obviously, you would think in those years you would have, perfected your craft and all that. Were you at all offended that WWE, when you first signed with them, and the reason I'm asking all WWE questions right now is because we covered a lot of the old stuff, but we will cover more of that in the interview. Were you at all offended that they sent you to companies like OVW and Deep South Wrestling for developmental when obviously you obviously had 15 years of homing your skills?
Okay, but here's the thing about that, okay? I never went to developmental from the get-go. I started out and I went on the road and I started doing the TVs and house shows. Developmental came afterwards, and I did it at my own request, so this way I can keep in ring shape, and this way anytime they needed me for anything, in case I was off the road or didn't do TV that week, I always made sure that I had ring time in the ring. This way keep my skills sharp. I got to keep my timing and keep in wrestling shape. You could do 100 million, hours or minutes of cardio. It doesn't add into being in wrestling ring shape. And me doing that showed more the hunger and desire I had after 18 years that I still wanted to be the best and I wanted to be in ring shape. Because who knew the next day if they were going to ask me, hey, Vito, we need you to do a 30-minute pay-per-view. Can you do it? Absolutely. Vito, can you do, we need a 15-minute Broadway. We need you to work with one of our top guys. No problem. Anytime they ever asked me to do anything, I was more than apt to do it. And I was always in the best condition, always in the best shape. And I still am that today. So it's not about being degrading. It's about taking pride in your work. And I'm very prideful. I'm a perfectionist. And, I will never embarrass myself in the ring. And the day that comes in, it's time to hang it up.
Okay, now, when you first came to the WWE, I believe Johnny Stamboli had just left the company, but was there ever talks of maybe reuniting the Mamalukes in the WWE?
There might have been, it was, small talk, but, like Johnny, I think, had left about 2 years prior, I think, and, to me, things like that happen where, the Mamalukes, one of the best tag teams that ever were, if whatever chance that it could be happen and do a reunion and make that tag team work again. I mean, that's probably one of the best moments of my career being in that tag team because it's still, after 8 years, still the most recognized name. Nobody ever forgot those vignettes. And Johnny and I were a good tag team when we matched well with each other. Even with having Disco as a manager, something that people won't forget, and that's entertainment, and that's the entertainment value of 8 years ago that people still remember today. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, some of that stuff that you guys did, I mentioned it to you when we were talking about even doing the interview, the getting the meatballs and spaghetti poured on you, I think you did a thing with your sister getting married, the wedding thing. I mean, there was a lot of really good stuff that people remembered. I distinctly remember that wedding thing because that same night, it was Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair, and I love those two guys, don't get me wrong, but it was about the 1,000th time they wrestled each other. And coming out of that show, instead of it being Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair, people were talking about the wedding angle. And, yeah. I mean, that has to feel good to a young wrestler like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, when you have prominent roles in wrestling, like, all my career when I started out, back in 1992, I was doing WWF TVs. I wrestled Bret Hart 4 times for the title. I was on every Monday Night Raw in the Manhattan Center. I, wrestled and traveled with WWE as a developmental guy when developmental wasn't the word they used, but I was a TV guy. Everybody thought I was on the contract then, and if you think about it, I was doing 6 and 7 minute matches on TV and getting stuff with the big guys when nobody ever got anything. And I wrestled the greats in the business, and people still, people who are wrestling fans remember that. How many people could say they wrestled Bret Hart for the title? How many people could say they wrestled The Undertaker when he was bagging people? The British Bulldog, the Big Boss Man, Legion of Doom in their prime. Owen Hart, Coco Beware. tag team with Mike Sharp in Manhattan Center, fighting a guy like Typhoon, going against Tatanka during his unbeaten streak. I mean, wrestling Virgil, you know, the list goes on and who I was. I mean, I probably wrestled my very first WWF TV was against the Rockers.
Wow.
That's going back.
Exactly.
And, you know, and along the years, I mean, from 1990, breaking into 1992, you know, going to Japan, wrestling in Puerto Rico all those years, which I got some of my best education in the business. Going to Memphis in the USWA, going to wrestle in the Dominican Republic, going back to Japan. I mean, how many guys can say they've gone the whole gauntlet? I mean, and been around the business. I mean, even like in ECW, I came in as a German. They changed me to Vito Labrasso. And, you know, they had to come up with a gimmick for me because I was a good wrestler and the people liked me, the fan favorite. That's why we came up with the Baldies.
Right.
You know, and
exactly.
Baldies was successful, you know, and then going to WCW, you know, they put me with Johnny the Bull. Johnny only had 9 months in the business, and we are tag team champions.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, wrestling against Terry Funk for the hardcore title.
And those are brutal matches, too.
I mean, being hardcore champion, being a WCW champion, going to Europe and fighting over there, being an Iron Man champion, and, you know, going around the globe, doing the XWF, doing, you know, being in TNA for a brief time, doing, going to Europe, going all over the world, and still wrestling today, you know, and, you know, still wrestling strong today and being very, very successful. I mean, that's longevity. That's a career. You know, it's not how much money you make, even though everybody wants to be a millionaire. But when you can say you've had a career, then you know you've accomplished something in wrestling because everybody says they're a pro wrestler. But I like to see you do the workout I do and do my squats and push-ups and go to the gym religiously and train and get my body lean and, you know, be tough, look good in the dress, being able to still, you know, you laugh, but you know what it is, you have to be able to wear that dress so that, you know, that's your gimmick, so you have to carry it. Mm-hmm. That's what's given to me. That's what I'm rolling with, you know? I mean, that's what people want to see. I'm very successful overseas doing that gimmick. I wrestle for the NWE overseas.
Yeah.
I am like the fans and the people there, they love me. They love to be entertained. And from being a hard, tough guy to being this fun-loving guy, you know, wearing a dress but still doing my wrestling and entertaining the people. I mean, I can't tell you the measure of success that I have. And you come out and they're chanting your name, and you run out there and everybody comes to their feet and they're clapping with you and you didn't even wrestle yet. You didn't lock up and they're on their feet, and that says a lot. That measures how successful you are.
Exactly, and that's something that I think a lot of wrestlers coming into the business today don't realize is that you can be the greatest wrestler in the world, but sometimes it's simple things like putting on the dress that really catches people, and I mean that's done wonders for you. We've heard a lot about the NWE, and obviously a lot of it had to do about the Ultimate Warrior coming out of retirement and things like that. What do you think of the way that company's going, and do you think it has legs to continue?
Be a very successful overseas company with other places for everyone to work. They have TV. They have TV there. And everything is looking strong, and it's going to be a very successful company. And the Ultimate Warrior, well, I was one of the lucky guys who got to sit next to him in the dressing room in 1992. And I remember it like it was yesterday. You know, he was ripped, huge, long hair. I mean, he was a god. I mean, him and Hogan in the same dressing room with Bret Hart, and you know, and like guys like that, and they're in their prime, and they're, you know, you don't experience, nobody experiences anything like that unless you're one of the guys or you've been there in that era. And you know, for him to come back now and after his match, you know, I mean, whatever reason he came back, and you know, whatever was on his mind, that's his business and it's his prerogative. But I still, after the match, whether it was good or bad, whatever people want to say, I walked up to him and I said, "Hey man," I said, "you're still one of the greats." And I said, "It doesn't matter what you did tonight." I said, "You're still one of the best." And everybody was jealous of you back then. and everybody's jealous of you now just because you're Ultimate Warrior. Was the match good? You know, I mean, he hadn't trained for it. He came back and he tried to do something that was the impossible, you know, and just the fact that he did it, I give him all the credit in the world, because a lot of guys, you know, never come off the deck and they always sit at home and say, oh, I could do that. Well, he was once one of the most famous, prominent superstars that ever came into the business, and he was right up there with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and everybody else. I mean, he was the man. Mm-hmm. And not too many guys could ever say they were the man, you know, and for him to come back and do that, whether it turned out good or bad in people's eyes, you know, I still just remember the guy from 15 years ago. The guy I sat there and watched. That's what I remember, you know.
You think you'll see him ever wrestle there again, or you think he's done?
I don't know if he'll wrestle for NWE again. I mean, but, you know, if he wrestles again, you know, I'm sure this time around he'll be better prepared. And I think that, you know, like I said, whatever reasons people do things, you give them credit and you don't knock them. And I have good things to say about him, and I have nothing bad to say.
Oh, I wasn't going to ask you anything bad. Let me.
No. People just take it as, you know, well, he didn't say this. The match is what the match is. The match was the match, and if you're not in ring shape, it's kind of hard to get and go 15, 20 minutes when you haven't been in the ring in 15 years. But I do give him. I will say this: he didn't quit. And he hung in there the best he could, and that you give him an A+ for, because he could have just laid down and said, "I'm done."
Yeah, personally, I saw clips of the match, and I thought he looked really good. Like I did not expect him to look that good in shape after all these years.
Yeah, but you got to remember something. Look at him body shape, and being a bodybuilder, and being a wrestler, and being in wrestling shape, two different things.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Is that? I take it that's why the match had somewhat of an abrupt finish.
Well. I mean,
obviously, we're not here to talk only about the Ultimate Warrior, but
but I mean, listen, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and everybody's entitled to say what they want. But from Vito's lips, you know, give the guy an A for effort, and you know, he came and he brought a buzz to wrestling like there hasn't been in a long time, and we filled up that arena, 18,000 people. So, you know, what can you say? Guy drew a house.
Yep.
So it was all good.
Exactly. Let me ask you this, and this might be the stupidest question you'll ever get asked in your life. How much protection did you have to take on poor old Ralphus?
On poor Ralphus?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Which time?
Bash at the Beach. Let's talk about that one.
Okay. Bash at the Beach, Ralphus. He wasn't a wrestler. Somebody's doing the hardcore. 2 guys against 1, and you probably you protect each other as best you can. And you know, he came out of there like I came out of there. I mean, I busted my hand open on the garbage can, and I cut my leg open on the thing. But you know, I didn't. To me, it wasn't nothing. You know, you were wrestling Bash at the Beach. You're the hardcore champion of WCW. You're wrestling against 2 guys. And it was a great moment. And Ralphus, you know, there's another guy. He definitely was not a wrestler. They put him in a position where he had to be one. And I still see Ralphus every now and then here in Florida, you know, on the wrestling circuit. And he comes and he thanks me for that moment. He says, Vito, he says, you always took care of me. He says, you're always nice to me. And, you know, I appreciate that respect. And he's older than I am. And that means even more, you know, he's got some courtesy towards me. And that means a great deal to me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I remember when you came into ECW, and there was a lot of talk going around about you. Skull Von Krutz, Short Von Crush. You came in there. You were really catching fire, and ECW was catching fire. What do you think of the ECW going around now compared to the old ECW?
2 different times and 2 different places. You can never duplicate an original. I'm sure down the line there'll be some guy who'll come along and address, but you always remember Vito. And when you try to do the ECW from back then, it'd always be different because it's not the same. Back then we worked out they had a dojo. They had training before the matches. You did your matches. You never laid down. You always gave 150%. You did the things that people wanted to see, and you did things that were unheard of back then. You were a high flyer. You were a tough son of a bitch. You could fight anybody, anytime, and everybody in that crew, from the top to bottom, was a hard worker. And there were certain guys you got certain pushes, and certain guys who just, that can hang with anybody. I was the guy who could wrestle anybody, anytime, anywhere, get a great match, and get a high five in the back from Paul Heyman and all the guys who were back there. And I always had the utmost respect from my peers, and it didn't matter who they put me in there with. I always had a good match, and I always gave 150%. They always had to tell me, Vito, do we have to go 15? If you knew you went in the ring with Vito, you know you were going 15 minutes.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you, ECW, that renegade spirit, a lot of people say when you came into TNA that it had the same kind of feel to it backstage. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's just two completely different animals?
Two completely different animals. It was TNA, when I was there, and TNA and ECW, two different beasts, man. ECW was a clique, was a family, was a different work-oriented kind of machine. And, TNA was run by Jarrett and Dutch Mantel. Ben Russo was down there. But it was just a kind of a different thing. It just wasn't the same feeling as ECW. Every locker room is different. Just like the WWE dressing room. You have your certain things you do and certain things you don't do. You don't follow the code of a wrestler, you don't have the experience, they're going to let you know about it. ECW, if you didn't follow their work procedure and what they wanted, you didn't have a job. TNA, it's either, you roll with what they want, and it's a different atmosphere, or, you go home. So, same thing with Puerto Rico, same thing with Japan, same thing with every place. But ECW was unique. ECW was once in a lifetime thing, and they never duplicated. Just like the Mamalukes. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Mamalukes were a very famous Italian tag team. They tried to duplicate it by doing the FBI. Which do you remember, the Mamalukes or the FBI?
I distinctly remember the Mamalukes, absolutely.
Okay, so then that's my point in case. You can't duplicate something that was already done.
Absolutely.
And ECW, the first show they had of ECW, when they did the first pay-per-view, it was good. But if you go back to that kind of style, with the chairs and the dives and all that, that's what made ECW different. Mm-hmm. And the matches you remember from there, Sabu and Taz, and you remember the RVD and Jerry Lynn matches, right? Phenomenal matches. You had Just Incredible, you had Raven, you had Lance Storm, you had, the Dudley Boys, you had a whole core of guys you could work. They had one-man gang. They had Sid come in. They had, and they had a whole bunch of guys. One night I was there, and I wasn't wrestling one night, and they asked 3 people to wrestle Sid. Everybody told them no. They said, Vito, we need you to. Paul Heyman came up to me, Vito, I need you to do something. I said, what do you need? I need you to wrestle Sid. Okay. Yep. He says, you know what I want? I said, absolutely. Didn't ask a question, didn't do nothing. I knew what my job was that night, and now it's to get that man over. And 6'6", 280 pounds, and just, buzzing because they were going to put him with Taz. I took a beating and a half.
Oh, yeah, I remember that beating, too, as a fan.
And I didn't even fire back once.
No, he pretty much killed you. But, you made him look good.
But the thing is that when he was kicking me, he was kicking me. When he was hitting me, he was hitting me. I just did my thing, and I took everything that man had, and I didn't say a peep, and I did my job. That's the wrestling business. And I went back there after I went over the top rope through the table, 2 power bombs. They thought that he killed me. And the thing that was the best is that when they stretched me out, there was no need for me to get up. I made them come stretching me out. They thought Paul Heyman came running down from the top. He said, Vito, oh my God, I am sorry. He says, are you okay? I said, yeah, was everything okay? He says, you all right? Nothing's wrong? I said, I'm good. I just want to have a good match. He said, you got a job here for the rest of your life. You fly. You don't do anything. I never got a bigger ovation from the boys because when you can work the boys and you come in and you fool them, you do your craft well.
Now, I have a question about that. Why did the other guys refuse to work with Ted?
I could just say he's a big, tough man, and sometimes you just don't want to get beat up.
Now, what?
If you're in wrestling and you're going to fight people, you know, I fought Goldberg, I fought Kevin Nash, and those guys are big boys. You know what I mean? I fought some big guys in my time. I never ever cried. I never ever, you know, I fought Van Vader, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And Van Vader, you know what I mean, he wanted, you know, he thought he was God in Japan. And, you know, I don't back up from nobody in the ring. And, you know, I said, all right, man, you know, we're going to, next time we wrestle, we're really going to go. I mean, and that's just the way it is. And, you know, Van Vader's 400 pounds.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you wrestle some guys and you know you're going to get it. And I don't mind taking it.
Right.
You know, but be prepared if you're going to get it back.
Yep.
And one thing you can always say about Vito, you know, I'm not going to complain. I will tell you to hit me as hard as you can, make it look good. But if you're going to complain when I hit you, then there's a problem. And especially if I'm wearing a dress, then there really is a problem.
Exactly. What did Sid say to you after the match? Did Sid ever thank you for what you did?
Yeah, he did. He thanked me. He made sure I was okay. And, you know, and that was about it. I mean, it wasn't much else. And then what wound up happening was at work, it was one-man gang and Sid, myself, and who was the guy I was tagging with? His face is Rod Price.
Rod Price, yeah. Whatever happened to Rod Price anyway?
I don't know. He's been wrestling a little. I'm not sure if he's wrestling anymore, but he was wrestling a little bit before when I started, so he was around a long time.
Yeah, I remember him. He was in Global way back when.
Right, Global.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have somebody like that, and you know, they say, okay, that looked good, let's do it again. It's just like when I was in All Japan, and they had me wrestle Dan Bobish. You know the Dan Bobish is big 360-pound street fighter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't know how to pro wrestle. So guys tried to pro wrestle him, and I told him, I said, Dan, we're going to do something different tonight. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, we're going to fight your style tonight. He says, what are you talking about? He says, I want you to hit me. I want you to punch me. I want you to knee me. I said, just don't shoot one and break my nose. I said, punch me in the head all night long. I said, I'll take care of myself, but I'll make it look like you're good. We went out and we had a 7-minute match where he threw his punches and did his stuff. I took it, did it, made them look good, and they were all happy in the back. And I said, oh, man, thank God I don't have to do this again. Well, I ended up wrestling another 4 times that tour. And, you know, it's like, you know, you do good, you make somebody look real good, and you do your thing, and, you know, you get that. You know, but compliment for Dan, because he tried to do it, and compliment to me because I made him work and I made him do what he did best to make him look good, you know. And, you know, big guys, and you're not here like I forget who said it. You're not here to pity pat. You're not here for a tea party.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to come to pro wrestling, you're going to get hit. Don't cry about it.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. You mentioned several times about, you know, helping put guys over, and eventually you made it. You made your name in the business, and obviously you're still one of the more popular guys that show up for the NWE shows and around the independent scene, I'm sure. But did it ever get to you being the star maker and not the star?
No. Who says I'm not a star?
Oh, you're a star. Trust me. I didn't mean it that way. Trust me. I don't want to piss off Big Vito.
It has nothing to do with that, you see, but it's like I said earlier, you know, not everybody gets to be that special person in life where, you know, more special people get to be a Batista, John Cena, Stone Cold, Undertaker, Ric Flair, Hogan. There's only a handful of those guys. Mm-hmm. There's 10,000 wrestlers, but there's only maybe 10 top guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got to wrestle the 10 top guys for the past 2 decades. And I've got to stretch my career out, but I'm still wrestling, and I'm wrestling all the big guys. And sometimes you don't be the biggest. You're not the biggest, you know, apple in the group, you know. Maybe it's good to be among the small ones, but every now and then I have my shining moment. And, you know, they could put me anywhere, anytime. And it's not about making and being a star, you know. If you carry yourself as a pro and you act like a pro and you feel like you're, you know, a superstar, you are one. If you gain the respect from your peers, that's the most important thing. It's not about, being a star, because you could be the worst wrestler in the world and you could suck on the mic. They'll make you into a star. Does that make you a quality wrestler? Does that make you the best on the mic? No. It makes you incomplete. But you could be a total package and be able to talk on the mic, be able to wrestle from cruiserweight all the way up to super heavyweight. You have more value. You're versatile.
Exactly. And
me, I am versatile. I wrestled my first cruiserweight match in NWE. They put me with Vitos Career for cruiserweight title.
Yeah, I heard about that. How'd that go?
Very good. Everybody said, "Man, Vito." I said, "Yeah, everything great." I got to wrestle my first cruiserweight match. I did really good, and that just goes to show that for me, wrestling a cruiserweight and doing all the high spots and everything, then when it comes down to doing the dress and then doing a super heavyweight match, I could do it. So, that just comes with knowledge, experience, and learning your craft and being a pro. That's all it is. And it's really being guys who are star makers and that's a whole bunch of BS. You just go in there and do your job. They pay you to do something, do it well. I do my job well.
I'm gonna throw a quote at you from Al Snow, because some parts of the interview you're hitting on a lot of the same points he did, and obviously he knows what he's talking about because he's been around a long, long time. He mentioned that the internet wrestling fans, they basically take wrestling too seriously. His exact phrase was, "We take two people, we put them in underpants, we pull their socks off, and we have them fake fight. And the internet takes it way too seriously." Would you kind of agree with that, or would you say that there's more to it than that, but would you say that there's maybe not all truth in what he said?
I don't know about the fake fight thing, and the rolling up your socks, but as far as the internet goes, a lot of guys on the internet, some are well respected and some are despised. Some of them write a bunch of gaga, some write a true fact. If you can write the true facts and put a quality paragraph together and write some true stuff about wrestling and how good it is, or if you're going to be derogatory about something, but you have some etiquette when you write it, that's what's important about the internet. A lot of guys sit there and they watch TV and they watch the stuff, but they're not behind the scenes. They've never even gotten a wrestling ring, and they're giving their opinions on how things are. Well, that's a fan's perspective. But if you were to tell me, "Okay, Vito, we're going to pay you to write a column about wrestling," I'm going to give you a more in-depth look at it. But a lot of guys talk from the outside, and they always say, when people say, wrestling's fake, you never did anything. I said, "Did you ever get in the wrestling ring before?" They say, "No." "Did you ever wrestle before?" I said, "No." So how do you know it's fake? Because everybody says so. Well, until you get to experience it firsthand, then I guess you really don't know what you're talking about. And just like me being a radio, like you're a radio superstar.
Okay.
You have a radio show throughout the whole world.
Yes, sir.
And if I was trying to come on and say, I am on the same level you are, I'm supposed to go and write an internet report about your show, I can't say or give any truth to my saying so of your show, because I never did a radio show, or I never did it on your level, or I never had this interactive, radio report that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I can't be correct. It's just like saying, Vito's a fighter, and there's an accountant. There's an accountant that's telling me, "You suck, you don't know how to do it, you didn't save me enough money." And he'll say, "Well, Vito, if you could sit down here and do it and not pay me $2,000, why didn't you do it yourself?"
Very fair.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I get what you're saying. I think the problem is, here's my problem with it, and I agree with what you said, and I've never stepped in the ring, so I always say, I don't know, but the problem I have with it is that it seems to be this thing in society where the only way to sound intelligent is to be negative. And that's just not the way I think most people want to live.
Well, being negative, does it get you anywhere in life?
Nope.
And misery loves company, right?
Exactly.
All the people who are negative in life are pretty miserable. And anytime you have something bad to say about somebody or something bad to say, Mom always told you, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it, because it always come back to bite you in the ass. And in wrestling, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say. They bring up steroid use. So they bring up Chris Benoit, they bring up Eddie Guerrero, they bring up all the guys who passed away in wrestling, and they labeled everybody. You know, Chris Benoit, what happened in his house? I don't know. Was it due to something else? I don't know. Everybody will assume it happened this way, and everybody will assume that, but the only people who know anything that happened that day are Chris Benoit's wife and their little boy. So you can sit there and judge him for what happened, but you really don't know what happened. Same thing with Eddie Guerrero or anybody else who died of a drug overdose, or anybody who died in wrestling that has significant problems. Everybody has their demons. But I always say, if I'm on the road, and who would ever think I would have a drinking problem? Nobody, right? But if I go and say, never go out in public and get drunk, never do anything stupid in public, but if I tell my best buddy, listen, I'm going in my room, here's my key, if I don't wake up for the bus, come and wake me up, I'm just going to go in and drink all night. No, I'm not hurting nobody, I'm not doing nothing to nobody, I'm just sitting by myself, but nobody would ever know what I do in my room. That's because it's none of nobody's business.
Exactly.
And if everybody learned how to mind their business in life and learn to mind their business, period, life would be a lot simpler, and there wouldn't be all this nonsense that goes around. You know, like you have a few wrestling sites, like Dave Meltzer is very famous, and you have a few other guys who are famous, and, you know, if they write bad things about you, okay. If they write good things about you, okay. You know, if it's going to make your life miserable, or you're worried about what people write about you and what people say, you'll never get anywhere in life. And my thing is, I really don't care what you have to say about me, because it doesn't make a difference either way in my life.
Exactly, man.
Do you find that to be a problem with some wrestlers, where they do take what guys like Meltzer say a little too seriously?
No, I mean, Dave Meltzer's been around a long time. He knows the wrestling business. He writes the MMA stuff, and you know, what are you going to say? I mean, you know, everybody complains about some. Triple H complains about it, but all the guys complain. You know, what I mean, but if the guy didn't give his opinion, you wouldn't have nothing to complain about, and that's just his opinion of things. There are a lot of guys who think they're creative material for WWE, and they could write all these storylines, but they don't know what's behind scenes because they've never been there. And a lot of guys don't know what goes on and all the politics that happen, and you know, and all the stuff that goes on, you know, behind the closed doors, you know, and that's something that people don't understand, that it's a lot more detail oriented than what it seems to be on the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
And wrestling, like, they just hired Freddie Prinze Jr. for WWE creative team.
I just heard that, yeah.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question.
Exactly.
You know Freddie Prinze's dad, very comical, Sanford and Son, and I think that was it.
Chico and the Man.
Okay, Chico and that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Chico and the Man. That's it. Now, what credibility does Freddie Prinze Jr. have to come and write a wrestling show?
he could tell you how Scooby-Doo would wrestle.
But does he know the wrestling business?
Absolutely.
It just says Hollywood producer, but did they say any credentials about his wrestling ability, his wrestling knowledge, him riding the roads and learning about the wrestling industry?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we all... on this show, we talk all the time about whether the creative team should or should not be there, and it really isn't our place to say. But
here's another thing, too. Do you know that a lot of the guys who used to go to ECW shows are now creative writers at WWE? They used to be fans.
You're talking about just fans, are?
Guys who used to pay their money to go to ECW shows back in the day.
Wow.
Right for WWE. Fans.
Wow.
You know? What do you say about that? You know, they know the business. They went to the shows, you know, so they know enough to write about it. So at least you give them that much. But as far as anything else about having credibility, you know, did they hump the roads? Did they ride, you know, did they do Dusty Rhodes and, you know, and make a legend of his career and then be a writer on top of it and remember all the old angles and what's in and what's out? Vinny Russo is a very creative guy. He's very into today. You know, you know, and he's a creative writer. Do they like all his creative ideas? No, because they say it's not wrestling 101. If you watch a lot of the wrestling today, like WWE is very tries to be entertaining, and they like to have a lot of promos and a lot of vignettes, and everybody complains there's not enough wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, then you have Ring of Honor, which is just high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot. And you can't follow. There's too many high spots. You have TNA, where every match is a gimmick match.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
And then you have Japanese wrestling, where there's no entertainment value. It's just hard wrestling. And then you have Puerto Rico, where the fans still believe, if the angle is done correctly, and fans still believe, because that's what they were brought up on. But every place is different. Every place has their own style. So, I mean, for all the different styles out there, everybody says, oh, there's only one kind of wrestling. No, there's wrestling all around the world. Wrestling is universal. You learn how to wrestle one way, but every story and every place is a different thing. And entertainment value back in the 70s never came into it. You knew Bruno Sammartino,
right,
and you knew Ivan Koloff. Ivan Koloff was the bad guy, but Bruno was the good guy. The night Bruno lost to Ivan Koloff in the Garden, place was crazy.
Yep.
When Pedro Morales won his heavyweight title, people were the best. When he lost it, people were heartbroken. Stan the Man Stasiak, master of the hot punch, 10-day champion. Right? Perfected that thing for 20 years.
Exactly.
10 years, in 10 days he lost his magic. I mean, the sleeper hold. Believe in the sleeper hold. I mean,
exactly.
Figure 4 leg lock. Legendary.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this is what you brought in on. This is how you are, and and that's what wrestling has come to as far as the internet. A bunch of opinions. Everybody has one.
Let me ask you this: you obviously have the historian mind for wrestling, and that's incredible. I mean, I love hearing this stuff come from you. You ever thought about maybe training guys and teaching them the ropes and teaching them, maybe giving them the tapes to say, look, you want to learn how to be a wrestler, maybe you should watch this, things like that?
Well, it's funny you say that because, I have, I have a 3-car garage, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I just bought a bunch of wrestling mats and a bunch of stuff, and, I was thinking about doing it. I set it up for myself so I could work out in my house and my gym, and I'd make a gym out of it. I sat there and thought, well, if Vito can teach, Vito would be a good teacher because I would teach you the basics and I wouldn't mess around. It's either you're going to train or you're going to go home. And there's only one way to do things. And, you learn how to do it. You do it the right way. And everybody has their own method. Everybody has their own style. Well, at least if you train with me, because I can tell you, I still have the same enthusiasm as 18 years ago. I still have the same training desires I did 18 years ago. I still work out before the matches. I still polish my boots. I still do all the things that made me Vito. I never lost that.
Uh-huh.
Never, ever. If I ever had a chance to be a trainer or teach guys or teach them, of course I would love to do it because I'm good at it. And I wouldn't, and one thing about me, I wouldn't BS you.
Mm-hmm.
If you suck, I'm going to tell you suck today. If you're good, I'm going to tell you did a damn good job. If you're a good-looking guy, right, and I say, man, you're a handsome-looking man, there's nothing wrong with saying that. If you're a beautiful woman, I say, you're a very beautiful woman. People say, you look good in the dress. Thank you very much. People say, you look like a fag in a dress. I say, well, thank you very much. At least, I got 2 different sides. Most people say, you look damn good in a dress for a guy. I'm like, I appreciate it. I work at it. I don't ever want to embarrass myself, but hey, everybody has their opinion. Why do you wear a dress? It feels good. Well, why do you like it? Because it's nice and airy. You know what I mean? And then when you watch me wrestle and I'm having a good time, all these kids and these parents and everybody, they're not watching a guy in a dress. They're watching Vito, and they're watching him with a big smile on his face, having a good time, and the people are having a good time.
But I guess the character kind of surprised people because it's so different from what Big Vito was. Big Vito was the big tough talker from Staten Island, and Skull Von Crust was supposed to be the evil foreigner and all that stuff. Is that, you think, why it clicks so well? Is that it's just so drastically different from what people expect from you?
I guess it's different, but I guess it's a plus in my corner, because if I didn't know my craft and I didn't know if I didn't know wrestling, I could never work the gimmick. And any gimmick I was given or any chance I was ever given, I always excelled at. Whether it was the littlest thing, I made it into a big thing. If it was a big thing, I made it into a bigger thing. Nobody gave me a shot in hell. It was 1,000,000 to 1 shot that I would get this dress over. 1,000,000 to 1 shot. I think I exceeded everybody's expectations in WWE. I'm still doing it today very strong, and it's, a very successful gimmick. It's entertaining. It's what people like. It's what people want to see. If you can have people clapping and dancing and doing your thing in that, you've accomplished the greatest thing. What people want to be, happy.
Exactly.
It's not even about being looked at in a different way, like, oh my God, he's wearing a dress, oh, he's gay, or you don't see that. You see a guy in a dress doing his thing. I posed for Playgirl magazine, right?
Yeah. You kind of took me by surprise. Say that again?
I posed for Playgirl magazine because I wore a dress.
Yeah.
How many guys can say in their life that they posed for Playgirl magazine, got their face on the cover, and got centerfold? And I didn't even go totally nude. I did it very tastefully.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. You say, wow, once in a lifetime thing, never to be duplicated. You can never do it again. But I did it. Yeah. You do the dress, nobody will be able to duplicate it. No matter how hard they try, they'll always say Vito. I will always go down in the record books.
Exactly. That's gonna live forever.
And the Mamalukes, you're always gonna remember that.
I think people, unfortunately, are going to also, with the Mamalukes, think, though, of the untapped potential of the team as well.
If there ever was a chance, me and Johnny still talk today, and we always talk and say, man, if we ever got a chance to do it again, that's the one thing I would love to do. Me and him as a tag team, come in and do our thing. I think it would be welcomed, and it would be something that people will remember those faces, and they remember Vito and Johnny. And they remember that. And that's something that you put in their minds, and they don't forget. I'm not saying I'm the biggest superstar, but I am remembered.
Exactly. Now, where would you do that if you had the choice? Would you do it at WWE, TNA, or just wherever?
Well, if you had the chance to do it for entertainment values and wanted to be on TV and entertain the people, WWE would probably be the best place. Because they like characters. If you're going to do it to wrestle in a tag team division, you would do it in TNA because they have tag teams. If me and Johnny were able to get together and go to Japan and wrestle, I think it would be good because they just know we're two tough Italian guys who are going to kick some ass.
Exactly.
If we went over to Europe and did it, I think it would go over well because we're Italian, representing Italy and all the countries there.
Exactly.
Not just as, just the two Italian guys. We are the Mamalukes.
The Paisans.
I heard. That's right, the Paisans. I heard a giggle in there.
Yeah, I tried to. No, the only reason I giggled is I was thinking, no, it's not the Mamalukes, it's the Paisans. Sorry about that.
Speaking of TNA, I want to ask you about something that you did while you were with TNA. I hope I'm not bringing up any bad memories or anything, but one match you were in was the Luck of the Irish match with Simon Diamond. What are your memories of that match?
Let's see. It was a hardcore match.
It was the match where you had the 4 foot lockers in the corners and you had to open the boxes to see which one had the weapons.
From the creative standpoint, it was a creative match. From the wrestling standpoint, it was like, okay, we'll do it. But as far as the match goes, it was hard to follow because you couldn't understand it a little bit. But, when you give people too many things to follow, and especially with the wrestlers, and you have to go to these boxes and you do these things, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, I mean, it was a good match, and I always liked working with Pat, and we always had good chemistry together. And we had some good matches, and especially in ECW when we used to work against each other in ECW. We used to have some kick-ass matches back then.
Exactly.
Real good matches.
Alrighty, man. Well, let me ask you two more questions. Well, one more question, and then we're going to head on off into some word associations. Let you go. We thank you for spending so much time with us so far today.
I enjoy it. You know what? I don't ever do these interactive interviews. I don't ever do any personal interviews. So it's a pleasure for me to do it, and it gives people some insight on Vito, and it lets them know, like, I'm not just some guy who just decided, oh well, I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm a guy who dedicated his career and takes wrestling seriously, and lives it, breathes it, and does it, but does it the old school way and believes in it. And I believe in all the old values because that's what made me successful.
Maybe I'm wrong here, but it seems to me like you're a little bit more tame now, 5 years later, than the first time we had you on. Maybe a little bit more tame, a little bit more personable than you used to be. Would you feel has something changed in you, or you just is it just the time of the day?
I guess that when, all in all, my wrestling career, I have to say that you finally grow up and you finally become polished and you know how to handle things in a professional manner. And sometimes when you're just thrown into something, you might do things that are wrong, but you learn about it later on. And then you learn how to handle these moments and you learn how to be gracious and humble and speak to the people who would like to speak to you. So I guess it just comes up with just being a finished product.
All right. Well, let me ask you, we touched on it briefly, and something as a wrestling fan that really irked the crap out of me was right after the Benoit stuff broke, because you had all these newscasters going on TV, and I'll single her out, Nancy Grace, claiming to be this big wrestling fan, and putting pictures up of the British Bulldog claiming it was Road Warrior Hawk, and then claiming to know exactly what they were talking about when it came to pro wrestling. And the coverage was just so one-sided, and it was so wrestling's bad, wrestling's bad. As a wrestler who obviously takes it seriously, were you irked as much as I think us fans were?
Well, yeah, I was irked because, Chris was a friend of mine, just like Hawk was a good friend of mine. And Davey Boy, I knew Davey Boy. And you're irked because people, first thing they just assume, and they just want to spill out all these bad things. But nobody, did anybody mention that Chris Benoit was a great father with his children, and that he had another son in Canada, and when he used to bring these boys around and he cherished his time with his family?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear that. But you think about how the times he spent with his son, and being on the road all the time, and when you do bring your family on the road and you just want that family time, it's hard. And it's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot to deal with. And even for myself, I was married at one time, and my ex-wife who passed away, she passed away in September.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, man.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have wrestled. She stood behind me. She was my backbone. She was my ears in the crowd. She was the person who listened to me, who watched, came to the Manhattan Centers and, sat there and, went through all the tough times with me, and how many times they told me no, but Vito, you're a good wrestler, just keep training. And I used to go to Johnny Rod's 4 times a week, and, and if it wasn't for, being in my corner, maybe I wasn't the best husband, or maybe I wasn't the best father because I was inexperienced and young, but you appreciate what people have done for you, and then you look back and you say, I had a good family, I had a good backbone to where I come today. And Chris Benoit, he had a good family background. He had his wife behind him. He had a beautiful son. He had another beautiful son. And, just like Hawk, a good-hearted person, huge, like, as tough as he was and as mean as he could be in a ring, he's a good-hearted blob. He was my buddy. And I was on the last trip to Japan with him. And, and you only remember the good times. Everybody has their demons. you, guys sitting in the radio booth, people who are listening, going to listen to this and read it, everybody has their demons in life, and you can't criticize people for that. It's, and what's their own personal demons might not be yours, but you can't give your opinion. You can't, badmouth people because they have the sickness. I'm going to tell you about a guy who's got the most charisma, or two guys who's got the best charisma in all of wrestling. He don't even have to show up, but he still has it, and they don't have to work at it, and they still got it. Jake the Snake Roberts and Razor Ramon.
Scott Hall.
Those two guys. I saw Jake the Snake a couple months ago, and he said, Vito, how you doing? And I said, and they all used to call me Rookie, or, Faldy. That was my nickname back then. But I said, Jake, got your mind straight? He goes, Vito, I think I got my mind straight now. I said, bro, you get a couple months in, get back in shape, and, you could go back there and be on top. You never lost that. Mm-hmm. And he just looked at me. He said, he says, I know that. He says, I just got to get things together. Scott Hall, he's in Puerto Rico when I was there. Vito, you look great, man. Look at you. Your stomach. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And he's sitting there and wrestling in Puerto Rico. I said, Scott, you get your mind straight, everything will be good for you, man. I says, you got it. You got what I would love to have, and just to have that taste of, being like that, where you can just walk out and you just lift your finger and people jump and, it's just that charisma that you have,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Two guys like that, you just look at them and you say, I wish they would get their mind straight. Another guy who's my favorite, who's a great, who might be a good person, had all the talent in the world, but he has his demons. Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
I've watched every Mike Tyson fight. I've seen Mike Tyson from the day he started in Gleason's gym. I saw the Mitch Green fight. I saw Mitch Green come in with a black eye in Gleason's gym. I saw Mike Tyson raise to fame and stood with Rooney and Caton and all those guys. Somewhere along the line, he lost himself. He could still be heavyweight champion today.
Yep.
With no problem. But everybody has the demons, and you can't knock people for that. No. Everybody has a sickness. Your secret sickness could be while you're doing a radio show, you like to eat cheese doodles by the pound. Nobody would know it. Your co-host could like to sit there and co-host in teddy bear slippers.
Hey,
everybody would know about it, right?
They're comfortable. I'm just kidding.
They're comfortable. But what I'm saying is that could be his sickness. He could order online on the internet. He could order 10,000 pairs, cause himself to go bankrupt. But, I promise I won't buy another pair. As soon as a pair goes on sale, there he goes and buys them again.
All right, man. Well, we love having you on, man. And I want to just close out with just a few word associations of a few people that you've crossed paths with over the past couple years since the last time we had you on. And hopefully, I'll give these to Patrick because I've kind of dominated him this interview, so I'm sorry about that, Pat. Why don't you take the word association?
All right, first word association I have for you is Vince Russo.
I love him like my brother.
All right.
Your former tag team partner, Johnny Stamboli.
Probably one of the best time in my career.
Trinity.
One hell of a tough chick.
The Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti.
A sweetheart of a guy and and funny as hell.
Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett, technician in the ring.
How about Alan Funk?
Now we're going to real extremes. Alan Funk. He's the guy who probably brought back exotic to wrestling.
The only reason I say that is because he gave us some funny-ass word associations. I wanted to throw him in there. I don't think we asked you, but he said that Johnny is dumber than an effing box of bricks, but a sweetheart. So just to give you an idea what he had to say.
Well, did he say anything about me?
No, he didn't. Honestly, I would tell you. He did not say anything bad about you. Didn't say anything about you.
You want to know about Alan Funk? Alan Funk was doing that gimmick, and his dad Alan Funk is a very family-oriented guy. He used to bring his father to the shows. Mm-hmm. So I used to talk to his father all the time. His father is a retired military colonel. So I say, hey, what the hell's going on here? Here you are, you know, guns and roses, you got the medals, you got everything, you America's flag, and look at your son, Fagado. What is he doing? Dressing up in ladies' underwears, right? And then he would stand there and we would go at it. I said, look at his hair, look at the sparkles, come on. Aren't you embarrassed? And he goes, Vito, I tried to straighten him out. I just can't do it. But the funny thing is that was the thing between him, his dad and myself. We used to have the best laughs about that. And a good time. And who would ever think that, you know, 8 years later, I'd be the one with the sparkles and the funny costume.
Alrighty, and
the last word association I have for you is Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon. I'm going to say this for Vince McMahon because it is true. Vince McMahon is a good boss because he pays you, he expects you to do your job, and he's a very smart man. He's a hard-working guy. And the thing I like about Vince McMahon, I always used to watch him work. It might be strange for you to hear this, but nobody says this. I used to watch him work, and he always had something for everybody. No matter if you're the lowest guy on the card or the highest guy on the card, he had something for everybody. I mean, everybody wasn't important. You're only as important as the angle or what you're doing. But when it was your time, he had something in mind for you. And that is the most intriguing thing you could ever say about anybody who owns a company. Because he knew everybody's first name. He knew everybody's character. He knew what was going on. There's the one difference between WCW and WWE, that there was one boss and not 10. And I have the utmost respect for Mr. McMahon. And it's not saying anything that's trying to be a kiss ass or nothing, but I have respect for him because I always used to say, if my boss can do it, I can do it. If he can take an ass kicking and go in a hardcore match, have his head split open, then Vito can eat a whole mouthful of worms. I ate the most worms in WWE history. Nobody's ever taught me yet. But if my boss can do it, I can do it. And the guys used to bitch about eating some worms. I just open my mouth, okay, how wide? How many you want? Anything they ever used to ask me to do, I used to think, Vince would be able to do this. I could do it. There ain't nothing he wouldn't do that I can do. That's old school wrestling. That's what you're doing. That's what the business you're in. You do what it takes. Unless you're going to go kill yourself, which you won't do. But my boss would do it. And he's a billionaire, quadrillionaire. Never has to worry about a meal or nothing ever in life again. And here I am. I got to struggle to survive and make my payments. But if we have the same work ethic, maybe one day I could be a quadrillionaire and, you know, and not have those problems.
Alrighty, man. I got to tell you, I always love having you on. We had you on the first time. We joked about saying, you know, you mustn't have done a good job if it took 5 years to call you back up to get you on the show again. But seriously, you were a blast last time. You're honestly much tamer than you were then in this interview, and I really enjoy having you on. And if you do decide to open that school up, and when you do get it up and running, give us a call. Let us know. Let me put some banners up on the website so people in the Florida area can come check it out, because I really want to do what I can to help you out, man.
And I'd like to say one thing also. Not too many people know this, but, you know, I was never a guy much for education, and I made my life on a high school diploma, and I'm probably best for knowing throwing books instead of writing them. But because of my time in wearing a dress, I always kept a journal. The WWE asked me to keep a journal, and I actually wrote a book. It's called The Dress Code. It's going to be published by Sports Publishing.
Wow.
It's about my year wearing a dress.
Wow, that's very cool. Sports Publishing, by the way, are very cool guys. They just released Tito Santana's book, if I'm not mistaken, and they are really, really nice individuals. I have nothing bad to say about those guys.
I mean, when you remember, like you said earlier in our conversation about being a star and being a star maker, well, I guess if you write a book, I guess in some small way you are maybe maybe a star. You might not be the brightest star, but you are a star.
Oh man, no, I didn't mean it. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. I didn't mean to insult you.
I just educating some people out there. That's all.
Alrighty, man. Well, this has been Big Vito on the Interactive Interview, so stay tuned and we'll have more in just a few moments.